Welcome to Dark Knight Films Reviews and another Versus Night. Tonight, I will be comparing Nightmares, released in 1983, versus Night Train to Terror, released in 1985. Now, before I get started on this one, I want to note these are horror anthology films. Nightmares was intended to have been a TV pilot for a television series that never happened, and they ended up releasing it theatrically instead as just a feature film. Night Train to Terror is an anthology film in which all of the segments that are in it were individual feature films that were either never released or they were unfinished. And they were included on this anthology instead. So, with that being said, let's start on this. And this one I'll be doing it a little bit different. I will be going through each of the segments, starting with segment number 1. Now, the first segment in Nightmares is titled Terror in Topanga, in which Christina Rains plays a woman named Lisa, a chain smoker who, after finding out that there's a killer on the loose, still goes out for cigarettes. Segment number 1 in Night Train to Terror is titled The Case of Harry Billings. John Philip Law plays Harry, a man who, after a car accident which kills his wife, ends up at a mysterious psychiatric hospital that is secretly killing its patients for organ harvesting. Now, this one was originally an unfinished film called Scream Your Head Off, which was intended to have been released in 1981. Between these two, I think the winner is real easy on this one. Terror in Topanga is a very, very good opening segment. Christina Rains as this chain-smoking woman who comes across the killer that she's hearing on the radio and TV and everything, and she ends up being saved by the most unlikely of people, William Sanderson. This is a really great segment to open in any kind of an anthology. It really reminds me of a segment in Creepshow 2, which I really liked as well. So I really like that one. The Case of Harry Billings, I mean, it is just a string of gory sequences jumbled with naked women, and it is just a chore to sit through because it makes no sense. None of what is going on in this makes sense, and that makes sense because it was intended to be a feature film, and they just basically took this unfinished film and jumbled all these scenes together to make a 20-minute segment out of it. So this is an easy win for me. I'm giving this one to Nightmares. So let's move on to segment number 2 and see if we can get a different outcome here. The second segment in Nightmares is called The Bishop of Battle, and it features Emilio Estevez playing a kid named JJ who becomes obsessed with defeating an arcade game. The second segment in Night Train to Terror is titled The Case of Greta Connors, and follows Meredith Hayes, who plays Greta, a woman who meets an eccentric man who forces her and her later boyfriend into Russian roulette-style death games. Now, this one was originally a feature film called Death Wish Club, released in 1983. The Bishop of Battle with Emilio Estevez is a really a good segment. It is not the best of the Nightmares segments, but it is well acted. Emilio Estevez really drives this segment forward with his portrayal of the character, and ironically, the voice of the video game character of the Bishop of Battle that he is playing against is James Tolkien, which is cool as shit. The Case of Greta Connors, it is much like the segment number one, even though these were not really made as segments for a anthology, and they were feature films and stuff that were edited down for this. It is an incoherent mess, just because it is probably an hour and a half movie that is cut down to 20-25 minutes to fit a segment, and it is just and even more egregious than the case of Harry Billings. The Case of Greta Connors also features this goofy, idiotic-looking sequence with a stop-motion bug in it, or some sort of a flying creature or something, and it looks ridiculous. So I'm going to give this one to the Bishop of Battle for Nightmares. All right, so let's move on to segment number 3 and see what kind of an outcome we can come up with on this one. The third segment in Nightmares is titled The Benediction and stars Lance Henriksen, who plays a Catholic priest named MacLeod, who is tormented by the devil in the form of a car. The third segment in Night Train to Terror is titled The Case of Claire Hansen, and stars Faith Cliff as a Catholic surgeon who is plagued by nightmares of Nazis, which intensifies when her novelist husband broadcasts on live TV that there is no God. This one was originally an unreleased film called Cataclysm, which was shot to be released in 1980. Now, this one isn't as egregious as the previous two, to where it has a bunch of, unnecessary nudity and everything, but it's still a jumbled mess of a story. And it is hurt, just like the Case of Greta Connors, by these idiotic stop-motion sequences that they throw in there at certain points, which I don't know if they were in the original unreleased film of Cataclysm, but in this, they really bring, because it looks so ridiculous. Because, the actor that's supposed to be getting attacked by this stop-motion creature suddenly becomes a stop-motion character himself. And it just looks so ridiculous. And ironically, it's funny that the third segment's here, both have Catholic characters in them. That's the only real thing that I came about with this when I was going head to head with these segments, that that one really stood out to me. But out of the two, the Benediction is superior, just because it really reminds me of the film Duel and the later film with James Brolin called The Car. It is so cool, and Lance Henriksen is excellent in his portrayal on this. So I'm giving this one to Nightmares as well. All right, so let's finish off with segment number 4. The segment number 4 in Nightmares was Night of the Rat, in which Richard Masur plays a husband named Stephen Houston who must defend his family from a giant rat. Now, there was no real 4th segment in Night Train to Terror, but there was the Night Train, which is the wraparound story in which Ferdy Mayne plays God against Tony Giorgio's Satan, and they both vie for control of the fate of the passengers on the train, which is a band, which is annoying as hell, because in between each segment you get these weird music video sequences, but they're not doing different songs in between each segment. They're doing the same stupid song over and over and over in it. So, yeah, that is horrible. And Night of the Rat on Nightmares is probably my one of my favorite of the segments in Nightmares. Richard Masur is awesome in here, and the rat creature that they design in this is very well done, and it is creepy looking and everything. And the story behind the rat and why it's tormenting this family is well done. So, yeah, I'm going to give this one to Nightmares as well for a clean sweep for Nightmares, released in 1983, in which it gets 4-0 over Night Train to Terror from 1985. Good rule of thumb, if you are making a horror anthology, do not do what Night Train to Terror does. Do not take unfinished feature films or released films that didn't get much traction and edit them down to 20-minute segments and then put them into an anthology, because it just becomes a jumbled mess of a film. And that is what happened with this. Yeah, Nightmares from 1983 is a far superior film in this. In fact, it's one of my favorite horror anthology films ever. So, what do you guys think of these two films? Do you agree with my assessment on this one? Do you disagree? Let me know in those comments down below. And as usual, if you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to click that bell icon so you can be notified about future videos just like this one. And while you're by the subscribe button, click that join button and become a Dark Knight fan. As a Dark Knight Fan Plus member, you have access to an area on the channel right now where you can request a movie, TV series, or ranking video of your choosing. And when that video goes live, it will go up for all Plus members to view prior to it becoming mainstream for everyone else on YouTube. So And then I'll put another post so you can do it again. So it's not a one-time thing. So if you want to get interactive, now's your chance.
Well, that's the end of another Versus Night. If you missed last week's Versus Night, check out the link up in here. Or if you've missed any of the other Versus Nights, check out our playlist and see anything that you have missed.